Yes, that's what I wanted. That is what I wanted. Good God, this has been a roller coaster of a year, but a good win. Let's talk. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Let's get to it.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
The Yankees are champions of baseball. Shaking and baking right here on the neophyte.
You guys trying to close the show.
She was doing a great job of feeding.
That is
It's over.
See ya. 3,000 history for the next
Tell me that so, KP. Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks?
Game over. World Series over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Okay, episode 640 of BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Big UFC card coming up tonight. But we're talking New York Knicks in 640 here on the podcast because they just came off a very gigantic win. A very old school win, 98-74 at the Garden against the Magic last night. Obviously the battle for the 4 seed. The Knicks took it back last night, and we got some good news the day before this game. As I'm recording and as this episode will be dropped the same day, March 9th. This episode should be out later in the day, March 9th on Saturday. I'm recording this Saturday, March 9th as well. We got some good news on the 7th that it was Ian Begley who reported on Twitter saying that Tom Thibodeau says OG Anunoby did quite a lot in Thursday's practice, and Tibbs said he didn't want to speculate on if OG would be back within the next 2 games, but the only hurdle left for OG is just to be cleared by medical. That is it. So you're expecting, at least I'm expecting, OG to be back sometime within the next couple of games. That's what it sounded like to me. And then he gave a little bit of an update on Mitchell Robinson, saying that Mitch can now run and jump. That was Kristen Winfield who gave that update. So yeah, it sounds like OG is going to be the first one back here, and we'll talk a little more on the updates later in the show. But it seems like, I was guessing Tuesday, maybe tomorrow, maybe Sunday is a possibility, but we'll see. And then yesterday before the game, Brunson was questionable, but I think most of us expected him to play, and he did. The kid's a badass, and he ended up playing yesterday in this 98-74 win, where the Knicks got off to a pretty hot start. They set the tone early, 8-0 run to begin the game. iHeart was active defensively, and the Knicks were running offense early on through iHeart. We'll talk about that in a sec. Brunson gets hot midway through the first quarter. Orlando keeps it competitive, but some big three-point shots by Deuce McBride later in the period had the Knicks up 8 entering the second. The Magic did cut it to 7 at one point in the period, but Josh Hart, man, we'll also touch on him, had some big shots late in the period, and the Knicks go on this 9-0 run to end the first half. Just their transition game, defense leading to offense, and they were up 16 at halftime. Third quarter, they go up 26 points. You had big contributions in the period from Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride. And then the fourth quarter, by then, it was mostly garbage time. And the Knicks would win 98-74. Brunson leads the team with 26 points. You had leading the team in rebounds was Precious Achiuwa with 14. Dante DiVincenzo led with 6 assists. And you had each of Precious, Dante, and Deuce with a couple of steals, and Precious with 5 blocks. For the Magic, Paolo Banchero led with 23 points. Paolo and Wendell Carter Jr. had 9 rebounds to lead the team. Cole Anthony had 5 assists to lead them. And then it was Paolo and Joe Angles with 2 steals, and Paolo led them with 4 blocks. But I want to begin this one, man, with the defense. Like we usually do. I mean, the defense in this game obviously was remarkable, 74 points. It was well prepared. Well, first of all, okay, this was Knick basketball. This was Tom Thibodeau defense last night. You saw the Knicks, setting the tone early with physicality. From the very get-go of this game, they were just dogs on the defensive side of the floor. They were dogs on the glass, blocking shots, contesting shots in the first quarter. iHeart, Precious, Jericho, they're forcing turnovers early on. And MSG was just rocking. Jericho had some putbacks. Josh Hart with the exclamation at the end of the game. So I thought the defense led this team to the win. And yes, the Orlando Magic offense is unspectacular, to say the least. But 74 points in modern NBA, and this is, again, it's without OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson. I don't care who you are, unless you're the Pistons, that's impressive as hell. That's the least amount of NBA points allowed this year by a team. And I'm going to credit Tibbs haters, close your ears. I'm going to credit Tom Thibodeau first and foremost for having this team well prepared. In the previous 3 games against the Magic, the Knicks were obviously shorthanded and banged up, but they had problems with Orlando's size, and they had problems scheming them. But I think Tom Thibodeau adjusted, and what he did last night was funneled the ball, and he was forcing Orlando into their weakness. 3-point shooting. They're not a good shooting team. The Knicks were swarming the middle, taking away driving lanes, sealing off the gaps, and you really, really saw that affect guys like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Orlando only had 26 points in the paint last night. That's incredibly low. Especially for a team that gets most of their offense in the paint. I thought Precious Achiuwa did an excellent job defensively, switching out on the perimeter, fighting over screens, did a very nice job defending in space. Those are his strengths right there, right? We talk all the time about where Precious is best defensively. It's last night was a perfect example. Sticking to Paolo Banchero, locking him down. He did a very nice job on Franz. He switched onto him up top early on with that first quarter block. He got on him. He was switching onto Cole Anthony a couple times and held his own. And even in possessions where where Precious didn't get the stop, he still did a very nice job in space contesting, and it just came down to sometimes good offense beats good defense. So I thought Precious Achiuwa's defense was very noticeable from the start to finish. He held his opponents to 36% shooting in the game, 24 points on 26 shots. Everybody combined that he was guarding. Specifically, Paolo Banchero, when matched up with Precious, was only 5 for 14. And Franz Wagner was only 1 for 5. Those were the 2 guys that Precious spent most of his time on. Most of it was on Paolo. And he did a really, really good job holding them quiet. And then the other 2 bigs, great. iHeart and Jericho, right? Isaiah Hartenstein with a great first quarter with his defensive activity. He looked way more like himself last night, moving much better on defense, and he looked like the Isaiah Hartenstein that we've gotten used to. And Jericho Sims, great job, man. Shout out to Jericho Sims, because I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough with the emergence of Precious Achiuwa now. But Jericho Sims is quietly improving in certain aspects of the game, and I'm noticing that he's doing a really good job navigating ball screens. His ball screen defense has really improved. His quick feet obviously allow him to switch out effectively, but he's also really been doing a nice job hedging pick and roll lately, and he recovers very quickly off the hedge. That's something I'm noticing, and that's because of his mobility. He's making very quick closeouts to the perimeter. You saw him close out on Franz Wagner a couple times to force a miss in the corners. And when he's got to go down low, and I thought he did a very fine job on guys like Wendell Carter Jr. in the low paint. So Jericho Sims, shout out to him last night. Shout out to Isaiah Hartenstein, like I said. And, of course, Precious Achiuwa, I thought, was the best defensive player on the floor last night for the Knicks. So the Knicks defense did a wonderful job holding the Magic to only 74 points. It is 2024, folks. 74 points in 2013 was still a little amount of points. Like, we're now in an era where scoring 120 points is like a must for a good offense. They held them to 50 points below that almost. That's really good, man. That's really friggin' good. I don't care who you have. They have Paolo Banchero on the other end. It's a good job. He only scored 23 points. He got off to a hot start and really cooled off in the second half. And you got to credit the Knicks defense for holding the Magic to under 20 points in three out of the 4 quarters they played. So this defense did their damn thing. We'll go to the other side of the floor in just a sec and talk about the offense, what I liked from the offense from the Knicks last night. Stay with us here on BD4. We'll be right back after this break.
Hey there, thanks for listening in so far. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much.
Welcome back to the show, episode 640 of BD4. The Knicks stifle the Magic in a huge win, 98-74. And I thought the offensive creativity was very noticeable last night, as it's been for even without all these guys. Now, the numbers last night don't tell the whole story. The Knicks only scored 98 points. They only had 20 assists. But you have to remember certain things. There's some context behind it. Like, Orlando, first of all, is an elite half-court defense. Both of these teams play at a very slow pace, so you're not getting a ton of possessions in. And the Knicks also did have 15 turnovers. But in terms of their scoring, I thought they were very efficient and effective with it. The Knicks shot 48% from the floor. They converted on 49% of their threes. They had a 115 offensive rating. There was a lot of ball movement, purposeful ball movement, a lot of hockey assists last night, a lot of off-ball movement. That was key. Like, I thought Jalen Brunson, as good as he was scoring, I thought he did a fantastic job getting off the ball early in the game to allow the Knicks to get the ball to the middle, to their bigs, swing, find cutters. So I thought Jalen did a good job there. But yeah, like the Knicks they've been running offense through their bigs lately, right? They're tapping into more off-ball, weak side sets. You saw, again, the Knicks going to Tex Winter's blind pig action, right? You saw that with iHeart early in the third quarter. iHeart hits a cutting Jalen Brunson with Paolo helping off Precious on the opposite wing from the weak side, and that opens up the driving lane for Precious to finish. And I want to see if I can get to that clip. I'll play it right now for you. You'll see what I'm talking about.
To just 39 points in the first half. That's the low for a Knicks opponent this season. Here's Achiuwa.
There you go. So they've been going to that backdoor play a lot lately, and it's a really good way to counter a pressure defense that's trying to avoid passing up top. Yeah, and I think the playmaking from the Nick Bigs, really set the tone in this game. Well, like I said, the first quarter, you have Brunson finding Isaiah Hartenstein, who slips pick and roll. Then Ihart hits Dante with a touch pass to the weak side corner. Dante knocks that down. Another moment in the first quarter where you had Dante make a pocket pass to Jericho Sims in pick and roll. Jericho finds Precious from the short roll. You had a Precious to Josh Hart DHO. Early in the second quarter, you got some classic Tom Thibodeau offense where he was using the corners, right? He had Deuce as the spacer in the corner. And then up the middle, he ran a Dante Jericho pick and roll to draw help from the corner. Dante hits Deuce on the weak side corner off of the help. And Deuce knocks it down. And I want to see if I can pull up that play real quick for you to show you what I'm talking about. Do I have that? Let's see. I do. I have it right here. Let's play that real quick.
So those were the first points for Orlando from a player other than Boncaro or Carter. McBride, another three.
So those are important things. That's classic Tom Thibodeau, using the corners to take help off the roll. And there's another possession I want to get to. I want to show this clip, a third quarter possession where some fakes. You had Ihart fake DHO to Josh Hart up top. Then he kind of fakes a backdoor pass to Brunson, who was a back cutter. That took help off of Precious. And then he hits Precious for the open three because Paolo helped off of him. And that is a play I want to show right here. It's a fake DHO, fake backdoor play.
Shot clock down to 5. Hartenstein looking. Here's Achua, puts up a three, knocks it down.
See, it's just subtle things like that just take help off the perimeter, and the Knicks are really doing that by utilizing their big men. So a lot of DHO, a lot of short pick and roll, a lot of slip screening, counters, things like that to generate offense beside just, the normal pick and roll into isolation, So I'm really enjoying the way they're finally tapping into Isaiah Hartenstein's full potential as a playmaker. When he was initially acquired, the idea was to make him the new Joakim Noah for Tom Thibodeau, and I think he's done a nice job doing that. Shout out to Josh Hart for also really improving offensively. Josh Hart's really taken a lot of heat from Knicks fans, including myself this season. But he's really starting to find his rhythm over the last month or so. And I don't believe that it's a coincidence that this comes in the same stretch where he's more confident in taking three-pointers, right? And I think that's what it's going to come down to, really, for the offense. The Knicks' playoff ceiling is going to have a lot to do with Josh Hart's willingness to shoot the ball. Just look at how they lost the Miami series last year with Tibbs waiting so long to go to Grimes over Josh with those spacing issues. And now, without Quentin Grimes' gravity, that makes Josh Hart that much more important, especially considering the guys that came in for Grimes, Bogey and Burks, probably won't be seeing much time in a playoff series. But over the last 13 games for Josh Hart, he's 40% on his threes, taking 5.2 per game. That's what we need. We don't need 40%, but we just need him to be above average, right? And, listen, when it comes to his gravity and the spacing, lack of, I should say, the defense is never going to respect Josh Hart. That's something that you're never probably going to see. But just him taking those open looks and making the defense pay by, again, knocking them down at an above average clip, that's how you counter that defensive scheme. Just knock them down. They're going to help off of him. They're going to collapse. If he's knocking them down at a 37% rate, 36, 37% average rate, fine. So he's been doing that the last couple of weeks, and it's really starting to pay off. And he was scoring the ball in other ways, of course, in transition. But I'm talking about in half-court sets. He was getting some post touches. He was exploiting mismatches on the post. Anthony Black, Markelle Fultz backing them down. He's playing really good, man, and I want to give the guy some credit. He seems to have his swagger back, and that starts with a 3-point shot. And he's just feeling himself, right? I mean, I'm loving this arrogance, this cockiness he's been bringing, snatching Donovan Mitchell's chain. He's staring down the Orlando bench in the second half last night. And again, he's yelling into the crowd after that fourth quarter dunk. He's just feeling it. And that's the heart that we got. He is a true New York Knick to a T. And that's what we need from him going forward. So shout out to Josh Hart for helping this offense thrive really over the last month or so. I want to go to our game balls. So we'll head to another break, get back, and we'll hand out our 2 game balls of the night in just 1 sec. Stay with us. Be right back here on BD4.
You can follow us on social media as well. On Instagram, we're at BD4Pod and at Rob J. Carbone. On X, we're at BD4Pod and at RJCBD4. And on Facebook, we're BD4.
Welcome back to the show, episode 640 of BD4. The Knicks beat the Magic 98-74 last night at the Garden. Jalen Brunson gets the game ball last night in his first game back from the knee contusion.
Bing bang.
Only missed 1 game. And he came back and he looked just as good as ever. 26 points, 11 of 19, 58% from the floor, 4 of 7, 57% from 3. And he was 7 of 12 from 2, 58%. 26 game balls now on the year for Jalen. Just incredible. Continues to do his thing, man. And he played 29 minutes last night. So I don't know how long he'll be on a minutes restriction. But, for someone who died and came back to life, he looked pretty damn good last night to me. He looked pretty surprised. So can't imagine it's going to be too long for Thibodeau. But, yeah, he looked good. He was scoring in all aspects again. The 3-point shot, getting off 2 feet in the paint, mid-range, pick and roll, pull-ups. He was great. I just wish he got whistles. He didn't take a single free throw in this game because it's an age-old frustration for Knicks fans, right? How many times last night did we see Jalen Brunson fall down after making a bucket? I mean, the guy's getting choke slammed to the fucking floor, but these zebras are swallowing their whistles, so he's not going to get a single call. So even with officials cheating, didn't matter because Brunson walked away with 26 and the victory, the W. So good job from Brunson. It's great to see him return to form like that. We go to Deuce McBride. Off the bench, I'm going to Deuce McBride, who had 14 points, shot 5 of 7, 71%, 3 of 3 from 3, and he knocked down his only free throw, had 2 steals. Deuce now has 13 game balls on the season with another good game last night. Again, the playmaking is not great, but you're seeing, his handle. There have been some improvements there. Snaking pick and roll a little bit more recently. He's flashing the pull-up jumper in the mid-range area. And, with Deuce, you're starting to look up, and it's kind of becoming a norm for him to be in double figures and shooting 40% or better from 3 now, which is awesome. Like, that was what we were hoping to get out of Grimes, and losing a guy like Quickly, Deuce developing into a smaller two-way wing, that's helping a lot. He had 19 minutes last night. He was great. Probably would have got more, but Orlando's got a lot of size. So Josh Hart running 40 minutes out there again. But great job from Deuce McBride. And, speaking of minutes and this rotation, I guess that'll segue us into this next topic. You're starting, it's getting a little interesting in this rotation, man. Maybe Tibbs is starting to figure some things out here. Because last night, Deuce got 19. Alec Burks got just 5 minutes. And he didn't play a single minute in the second half. And his only minutes in this game were just to give Dante DiVincenzo a breather early on. You're seeing the shift. Deuce McBride is now the first sub in for Jalen Brunson, not Alec Burks, which that was what it was initially. And you go to the other Detroit guy, Bojan Bogdanovic, last night only 12 minutes. He got less than 5 minutes in the second half. So Tibbs kind of realizing the Knicks' defensive issues when Bojan and Burks share the floor together. So I think he's staggering more to get Bojan playing with multiple plus defenders. And that's something you're going to see when OG Anunoby returns soon. You're going to see them play a lot together, I would expect. And then once Anunoby and Julius are back, you're going to have a second unit of Deuce, Hart, Bogey, Precious, and then OG will be the guy who staggers. So that right there is one hell of a defensive second unit. And if you add a healthy Mitchell Robinson to that at the 5, and you maybe slip Precious down to the 4 in place of Bojan, like, okay, there's zero spacing there because, Precious, Mitch, and iHeart are your 3 non-spacers. OG is more of a corner spacer. The defense doesn't respect him above the break. And then Deuce is he's a good shooter, but the defense is still going under on his pick and rolls. But their defense will really prove valuable in certain matchups. But yeah, like when the Knicks are fully healthy, who does that leave sitting? Tibbs, if he keeps his rotation at 9, and he will not go 10, he's going to have to sit 2 of 4 guys. Between Bogey, Burks, Precious, and I'm assuming Sims is going to be the odd man out. Bogey, Burks, Precious, and Deuce, two of those guys are going to sit. You have to imagine Burks is probably the odd man out, right? One of those guys will sit if he's playing 9. No, 2. Yeah, if you're fully healthy, 2 of Bogey, Burks, Precious, Deuce, and Sims are sitting. So Sims probably gets booted back to his situational role. Burks could be an odd man out. I mean, I would think so. Tibbs is barely playing him now. Maybe Bojan, too, because he doesn't fit Tibbs' style. You can tell. So, yeah, that leaves you with Deuce and Precious. But when the playoffs come, and if Tibbs shortens it even more to 8, then you're choosing 3 of those 5 guys to sit. And it's going to be, I'm sure, matchup dependent. If you need offense, spacing, gravity, maybe Bojan sees time. If you need size, defense, rebounding, maybe Precious sees more time, right? Like if they play Orlando in a playoff, who have tons of size, longer wings, Precious will probably be seeing minutes because you can stick him on someone like Paolo. I hope that Tom Thibodeau pushes the right buttons when everybody's healthy. There's so many things he can do, but that's kind of my biggest concern. I think that's what ultimately could lead to Tibbs' downfall is his inability to mix and match and stay flexible. But we'll see. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. We'll talk a little bit more about this in our next segment coming up right here. So we're going to head to break. When we get back from break, we have a segment. I pre-recorded this segment the other day as soon as these injury updates on OG and Julius and Mitch were announced. And I just talked a little bit about what the offense looks like without these guys and I talked more about the optimism of these updates. So we will get to that as soon as we return from a break here on episode BD4, episode 640 of BD4. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you're interested in our website, just go to www.bd4blog.com. You can subscribe to our blog on there right on the front page. Just like on the podcast, we cover Yankees, Knicks, and MMA. Also on our website are the links to the different platforms for the podcast. Thanks so much.
Okay. So this segment of the show is recorded before Knicks Magic. I'm recording this segment Thursday, March 7th, but obviously this episode has been dropped by now. It's probably Saturday the 9th after the Knicks just play the Orlando Magic. It's a game that I'm not looking forward to as we speak. I have a feeling things aren't going to go well, especially if Jalen does sit. But that's what we're going to discuss in this segment of the show because we did get some positive news regarding the Knicks injuries. Earlier today, this morning, I was on my way to campus and I get a couple of texts from my friend, like consecutive texts on a bunch of updates from some of these Knicks. So in this segment of the show here, it's probably just going to be a few minutes, but I do want to discuss my thoughts on these updates and what we can expect and talk a little about what's been going on with the Knicks since the injuries have all taken place. So we got an update on OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and kind of Mitchell Robinson and Jalen Brunson. Now, obviously, OG Anunoby is a guy I'm most excited for to get back. OG this season across 41 games has averaged 15 points per game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 2 turnovers, 34 minutes played. With the Knicks, since coming to the Knicks in 14 games, he's actually averaged 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 1 turnover, and he's done that in 36 minutes, again, across 14 games. So that's like, so, you know, I don't know how, but I mean, it's people are irrational on the internet. People are blaming Tom Thibodeau for this injury. This is one of them. It's just fucking mind-boggling how Tibbs is taking heat for this one. I don't know how soft you can be because, again, the kid was averaging 34 minutes per game with the Raptors. He's averaged 36 minutes per game with the Knicks. 2 more minutes per game with the Knicks through 14 games. I mean, you get to 34. What's the fucking difference? That's not on Tom Thibodeau. That's nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau. That's an injury just flaring up. I cannot believe that Knicks fans now, I know there was a point where he ran OG for 43 minutes in back-to-back nights, or 3 nights he ran him. At the end of the day, he's played 36 minutes per game across 14 games. Okay, so he's had some heavy minutes where he's played 45 plus, and he's had some games where he's played 30 minutes. And he's, at the end of the day, there's been nothing wrong with the way he's being used. The workload has nothing to do with Tom. He's an NBA athlete. The high impact guys in this league play no more minutes than the high impact guys on the Knicks. And I don't want to go on another tangent because I feel like I have to go on one of these pro Tibbs tangents once or twice a week because some of you are so incompetent when it comes to the guy. You're just like, you fail to listen to reason. But Tibbs is go hard mentality, while it does put some guys at risk of being injured and overused, it's also the reason that this team is where they are under him. It's the reason that they are headed for their 3rd playoff spot. Do they make it in 4 years under Tom Thibodeau? Because he pushes these guys the way he does and has this winner mentality. Now, you can talk all you want about does that translate into the playoffs and can he be the guy to win them a championship? I would probably agree with the anti-Tibbs people when we get there. But as of now, I'm not going to judge him when it comes to OG Anunoby's injury. I think that's just elbow inflammation. That's what it was. And I believe earlier this season, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure I heard that he was dealing with this earlier in the year. That's just injuries. Some injuries, guys, believe it or not, injuries just happen. A lot of them just happen. So OG injured his elbow on the 28th of January, and it was official. Initially, he was ruled as day-to-day, right? Obviously, at the time, like as soon as he missed like 2 games and then he missed his 3rd game, I was like, all right, something's up. And I put a comment on Twitter, I'm like, something's up. And I get a little heat from it. I'm like, oh no, what are you crazy? This is what day-to-day means. And I'm like, all right, let's see. And then what do you know? I don't know, maybe a week after the initial injury, you get the news that it's a bone spur and he's going to need surgery. And he got surgery, and the Knicks were keeping that hush-hush for a bit. And so now days ago, just a couple days ago, you get news that OG Anunoby has been cleared to shoot, pass, and do non-contact drills. And you also got the report out, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, by Begley, saying that Randall possibly could be ready before OG Anunoby. But I don't think that's going to be true because we got an update today from Fred Katz saying that OG Anunoby is now participating in contact drills and he's doing 5v5. And he's officially been upgraded to back to day-to-day, which is a big positive. I hate, again, they don't put timestamps on any of this, but like maybe game 2 against the Sixers, the second game of that mini-series on Tuesday. I think that's March 12th. That'd be great if you can give us that game. Come back then. But, yeah, OG is a guy I miss the most. Julius Randle. Man, what I would do to go back in time and start over on January 27th against the Heat just to make sure none of this happened. Randle was averaging 24 points for the Knicks, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal per game, 3.5 turnovers, playing 35 minutes a night, 46 games played. Yeah, he gets hurt on the 27th against the Heat. Maybe 4.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter there. The Knicks are up 16-17. This is another one that Tibbs has taken heat for. Him landing bad on his shoulder has nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau. Now, you can argue, should he have been in the game at that point? Again, 4.5 left. The Knicks were up 16-17. I personally, just because it's the competitive edge in me, I'm not one to bitch and moan and cry when players are in the game late. I am very much like Tibbs, where I want to make damn fucking sure that we win the game. And you're playing the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat. This isn't no random team for the Knicks. This is a national televised game against the Miami Heat. You want to make damn sure you win the game, so that's why he was in the game. I'm not blaming that on Tom Thibodeau, though I do understand why some people might. But it was eventually when we finally got some kind of timetable, it was I think Woj said it was just a dislocated shoulder and that he would be reevaluated at the time in 2 to 3 weeks. When I first heard that, I was kind of aiming for a March return. So I blew past the 2-3 weeks, and I was just thinking pessimistic, which at the time that was a pessimistic viewpoint. Even others at the time were actually saying like earlier than that, like people thought he'd be back right after All-Star break. Ends up, we're still talking here on March 7th, and he's not back. But today you did get the report that he's been cleared for light contact, pad work, and he is not too far behind OG Anunoby. So maybe Julius can aim for a return at the end of March. Maybe that would be realistic. I don't know. But I am concerned. I think he will come back. I am concerned how he's going to hold up. You know, this is a shoulder injury. I know it's not his shooting shoulder, but Julius is a physical post player. He's going to use his shoulder to plant into the chest of the defender. He's going to use it to drive. You know, in a playoff series, nothing's off the table. And, I'm not saying the teams are going to be dirty, but let's just say they know. They know that Julius is out right now with a shoulder injury. Okay? I'll end it there. Teams know that he's got a bad shoulder. And in a playoff series, it's win or go home. So you draw your conclusion from that. So I am a little concerned there. And then Mitchell Robinson, he was averaging 6 points, 10 rebounds, an assist, 2 steals, a block, 1 turnover across 29 minutes played this season in 21 games. Crazy how he was only here for 21 games. It felt like he's been here for a long. He's played a lot more. But yeah, he went down December 8th against the Boston Celtics. Turns out to be a broken ankle. Again, another injury. This has nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau. But yeah, initially it was that Mitch was going to be out for the entire season, and he was getting ankle surgery, which he got, and the Knicks at the time applied for disabled player exception money, and they eventually got denied because I guess a second opinion came in that Julius might be returning after all, and that's where we are. He's back on the court, but he's still not doing any contact drills, no 5-on-5s yet, but he is progressing. Tibbs said he's doing well, so that's all we really have regarding an update for Mitch. So I'm thinking he's probably the last to come back, and it's going to be sometime in April, hopefully before the playoffs begin, so he can get some games under his belt, because Mitch is a guy that takes a little while to readjust into the game and get his conditioning back. He's the one guy that I'm not expecting much from when he comes back. I'm not expecting him to get a ton of minutes. I don't know if he's going to make much impact because of what I just said about him taking a bit usually to get his wind back. But we'll see. And then, of course, Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson almost died versus Cleveland earlier this week. Turns out he's okay. It wasn't an ACL. It wasn't anything to do with the Achilles. It was a slight contact injury, which is listed as a knee contusion. As of now, he's questionable to return tomorrow. He missed the Atlanta game, obviously. But yeah, this seems like it's a couple days to a week injury for Brunson, going by what some of these doctors have been saying. And this is another injury that has nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau, by the way. The only injury really that I'm putting on Tom Thibodeau is the Isaiah Hartenstein injury that he's been playing through. The Achilles injury that took him out before the All-Star break, and it's probably going to take him out a few more games this season. That's an overuse thing, right? That's something you can look at Tom Thibodeau and blame him for. But Ihart's still out there. He's just not been the same player, right? He's not been the same since this Achilles started bothering him. And I do worry a little bit about him. He is, he's not, like, we have insurance at center. So with Mitch coming back, it's a good thing. It's crazy how we can't get all of our bigs healthy at once, but it's kind of the way the season has gone. But yeah, these guys are all needed, man. The Knicks are 7-9. The Knicks are 7-9 since the Randall and Anunoby injuries. You've seen the defensive drop off. The defense has been very bad, especially without OG Anunoby. But also Mitch, when he comes back, he will allow Ihart less minutes and less usage, which would help. The offense has been very ugly to watch at times, especially when Jalen Brunson isn't playing. The spacing's much worse without OG Anunoby and Brunson. There's no gravity out there without Julius, so Brunson's not able to get his catch-and-shoot threes where he relocates on the corners. And, it's been a tough offense. It's held up a little better than I thought, considering they've gone through multiple games without 3/4 of their starting rotation, sometimes 5. The fact that the Knicks are 17th in offensive rating in these 16 games without Julius and OG and Mitch, it's not terrible. And then some of those games, Brunson, Dante, and Ihart, not terrible. It's slightly better than I thought. Tibbs is trying to give a different look to the Knicks half-court offense. He's trying to create advantages in different ways where, since they have less ball handlers, without Randall, and a lot of these games without Brunson, and remember, since the trade, there's been no Quickly and RJ now. He's gone away from the ISO and the pick and roll, and he's went more to DHO. We're seeing more 5-out looks. We saw a lot of success with the Knicks going 5-out. I forget if it was against Cleveland or Philly, but there were a few possessions I really enjoyed watching the Knicks go 5-out, and they looked good in it. We're seeing some delay offense where they're getting into their sets a little later in the shot clock. And they're putting more emphasis on their bigs. This is something we've brought up. There's been more off-ball sets where they'll use Boyan as a ghost screener. Recently, you saw a possession where he was with Deuce in a pick and pop. Bogey slips the screen. He fades to the left wing and catch and shoot. So you're seeing Bogey used as a ghost screener. You're seeing more focus on the weak side, where Isaiah Hartenstein, he'll be used as a weak side outlet for alternate sets. Like if the strong side action fails to execute, the Knicks would pivot to using Ihart and DHO. Ihart's been the initiator lately in a lot of these blind pig actions recently on the second side. You're even seeing Jericho be used as a hub there. But, Dante has been used in a lot of those sets as the back cutter. And this is something I think the Knicks should continue to go to when they're healthy. Because I think a player like OG Anunoby can be used in the same role as a Dante DiVincenzo, where he's used as the back cutter in a blind pig action. OG's been a great cutter for the Knicks. And his spacing's missed too, right? And I think that's the thing I'm mostly looking forward to when everybody returns is the offensive spacing. On the offensive end, I'm most excited about the defense, but offensively, I'm most excited about this spacing that OG is going to bring. Because when he's back, you could still have guys like Bogey and Burks and Deuce above the break on the wings to take help off Brunson actions if they're one pass away. But you can also use OG Anunoby. He was their corner spacer. He's the guy who took help off the roll. He cleared the paint because of his gravity on the corners. So I think that's going to help them a lot. I am very curious to see to see OG get minutes with certain lineups. I think he provides Tom Thibodeau a lot more flexibility because of his two-way play. You can use Bojan Bogdanovic more now because you're able to hide him defensively with OG in the same lineup. So maybe they use Anunoby with the bench unit more. You know, when the Knicks initially made the deal with the Raptors, you saw the bench struggle very much right off the gate. And Tibbs tried everything he could. He tried playing OG with the bench. He tried playing Randall with the bench. That wasn't as good as we thought it'd be. I think now that we have a different second unit with Bojan there, OG, I think, would work very well with him. You could use OG in those lineups. You can go Burks, Hart, OG, Bogey, and a big. Or Deuce, Hart, OG, Bogey, and a big. You can stagger and have OG share the floor with Dante and Brunson and Randall and Precious. You know, like that's an interesting small ball lineup to use. I'm very curious, man. I want to see if Tom Thibodeau can push the right buttons because he's got a lot of options. And mostly I just want to make sure Brunson's back okay. And he's so key to this team, obviously. But, you know, watching the Knicks run offense without Brunson at point guard can get brutal. It can get very brutal. Alec Burks, as we know, has been, abysmal is being kind. You know, listen, the concerns were there at the time of the injury. People were wondering, well, can Alec Burks really run point guard? You know, can he back up at point guard? I personally, I thought he could do it. Like, I didn't think it'd be a problem. I thought he would be able to bridge the gap from the trade until the guys get back. But he's obviously not even been able to do that in minimal minutes. You know, his best season with the Knicks was year one when he was used in the off-ball role as a weak side spacer in spot-up actions. His worst season with the Knicks came the next season when he was running point guard more. And that's what he's been on the ball here, and he's just taking contested mid-range shots at bad times in the shot clock, and he's using these, he's just going out of the offense, directionless isolations and poor clock management. It's just not been a smart point guard. And Deuce McBride has played well. He's played well, and he's made point guard strides. He's shown you things. He's putting the ball on the floor and snaking pick and roll. He's using his gravity a little more to get downhill. You know, he's attacking on the second side. And his awareness has been a little bit better. He's making better passes than we've seen Deuce McBride make in the past. We're seeing a little more cross-court passes, more pick-and-roll swing passes. We'll see the occasional skip pass off of Flair on the perimeter. So he's done some nice things. He's developed a pull-up in the mid-range area. But for the most part, Deuce McBride, as good as he's been, is still not a guy to run the offense. He's not a point guard. He's got the body of a point guard, but he's just too unathletic and undersized for the type of play style he is. You know, he's an off-ball. I've heard this. I heard it on a podcast, and I've been abusing it since. He's an off-ball wing in a point guard's body. I think that's the best way to describe it. He doesn't score much at the first two levels. You know, there's not much of a floater game there yet. And, you know, he's, for a point guard, doesn't have the greatest handle. So he can't really break down a defense well. You watched the other night, Atlanta did a nice job switching pick and roll, just putting a longer wing onto Deuce, and that makes it difficult for him to use the screen and create offense. You know, that's all you got to do. He takes a while to get into sets, a lot of dribbling that goes nowhere. But I think he's best when Brunson's on the floor with him, you know? And there will be possessions where Jalen Brunson is sharing the floor, and he's still off ball. Like, the Knicks have tried to get Brunson off the ball more this season, and I feel like it's worked. He's been in some off-ball sets. He's been relocating. He's been used in floppy actions where he's coming off a stagger from underneath, or gut DHO where he's cutting through the middle. So these are all things I would like to see when they're fully healthy. The Knicks can still use Brunson in an off-ball role. That's a new wrinkle that could really benefit their offense. So I think, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle are obviously going to provide very big things for this offense and the defense. But I just wanted to give my quick thoughts, 25 minutes here, on these updates and what I'm most excited for when these guys get back. Defensively, maybe we'll add some more defensive input another time, or maybe later in this episode, we'll see. But I think that's all I want to add, because I'm trying to catch the end of this Yankees game. And currently the Miami Heat are playing the Dallas Mavericks too, so I'm keeping an eye on that game, flipping back and forth. In Indiana, the Pacers are also playing Minnesota. I want to see how that game's going. Those are important games for the Knicks. So I'm going to go check out these games and stress some more. But I appreciate you all tuning in to this podcast. We're going to get back to the show now. This is just a separate segment of this show, so let's get back to the rest of the show. Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born. All right. Yes, we are back. Welcome back to episode 640. Basically, said all we needed to say. Last night was a very, very, very important win. A great win. I'm so glad to finally beat Orlando. I hate that team. I hate the fact that the Knicks lost 3 straight before that. And I just, they were shorthanded a lot, and they never had their full new roster, new rotation with to play with against Orlando. And I don't know, man. Orlando's not a team I trust in a playoff series. I will say that in my preseason predictions podcast months ago, I did project them to be a sleeper team and break out in the Eastern Conference to have a good year. So I'll give myself credit for that, but I don't think they're ready for a deep postseason run. Wouldn't be shocked if they were one and done. Wouldn't be shocked if they fell to the play-in and dropped that. I think they're very, very, very young. And they can't shoot well. They don't have a good offense. You saw last night the Knicks were ignoring Franz Wagner off ball. They had Hart on him, ignoring him. They would stick Brunson to hide him onto Franz when he was off ball. They're not a good offense. They're 23rd in offense this year, 25th in three-point percentage, 29th and 30th in takes and makes, 28th in free throw. And, I'm trying to do 2 things at once while watching this Iowa Hawkeyes game, watching Caitlin Clark. 29th in free throw percentage, 28th. 24th in turnovers per game. I just feel like you put this Magic offense, match them up against a good half-court defense like the Knicks or Boston or Miami or Cleveland. I don't trust them. And I don't know if it was just last night. Again, I know their defense is very good, but they do not and maybe cannot box. Like, you had on the glass Isaiah Hartenstein and Precious Achiuwa embarrassing the shit out of guys like Wendell Carter and even Paolo Banchero. Like, they were, like, you have to be able to box. That's one of the first fundamentals you need to learn defensively. And the Knicks took care of them there. But back to what matters. It was a wonderful win. Big win, because you had Miami losing to OKC last night. Philly lost to the Pelicans. And if you care about the teams ahead of the Knicks, Milwaukee lost. Cleveland did win in OT. But the Knicks, with that win over Orlando, now take back fourth place. So they're a half game up on Orlando, 2 up on the 6th seed Heat with the tiebreaker. And if you go down to the play-in seeds, they're 2 up on the 7 seed Sixers. And if you take just one of these two in this mini-series coming up, they will maintain ahead of them and also have the tiebreaker. And they're also 2.5 up on the 8 seed Pacers. They don't have the tiebreaker for that, but good news is on the horizon with the OG Anunoby news that he's coming back hopefully by Tuesday. I just saw on my phone that he's not going to be back tomorrow, which makes sense because Tyrese is sitting tomorrow. Probably why they're doing it, give him the extra rest. But the Knicks held their own without OG. They treaded water by going 8-9. You know, they're still waiting on Randall, but if they were about 500 without OG and Randall, you figure they can do even better now with OG until Randall gets back. You know, and the crazy thing is, like, when this Knicks team was fully healthy and peaking in January, they were either borderline or they might have just snuck into the top 5 in both offense and defense. And despite all this nonsense going on, they're still top 10 in both of those categories, which is crazy to me because they've been without 3/5 of their starting rotation and even with less on some nights. So, good win for the Knicks. Philly is tomorrow. And that's that. Let's get to our final break, wrap it up with our trivia. That'll be that.
Thanks for listening to BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA, Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Episode 640, our question of the day. What was the Knicks' record in games that OG Anunoby appeared in before he was injured? All right, what was the Knicks' record in games that OG Anunoby appeared in before he was injured? Let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in the next show. Guys, that's it. Appreciate you all tuning in. Episode 640 is in the books. And I'll see you in 641. Thanks. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you. And we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees and go Knicks!